and thinking of what's about to happen tomorrow. And I don't talk a lot about my business. And when I say business, not my personal business, as well as my financial business, and the effects of what's happening is going to reverberate throughout Oakland. And the reason I've gotten involved in things like the Warriors relocation and the Raiders relocation and now possible A's relocation is because, sorry, my neighbor is trying to get my attention, is because I have business in Oakland, and I'm fighting for it. A lot of people know I do photography and stuff, but I have another business that I deal with. And what I'm looking at here is losing my business. So I'll just give you, I don't want my name attached to these businesses or my business because things like YouTube and Twitter are dangerous. And the people here are rude and vindictive. So I won't tell you where it is or what the name of it is, but I will tell you that we are in the food and hospitality business. And with the loss of the Raiders and the Warriors, I mean, we had contracts with them. And I'm a small player in the business, but in the larger sense, you know, the people I do business with, we agreed today that if this doesn't go forward, we have to either fold or move. We suffered greatly with the loss of the Raiders and the Warriors. We had contracts with them. We've been staying afloat with smaller jobs with the school district and such. But those high profile things, I mean, that was, you know, 50 plus jobs a year that we were able to do something with, you know, make money for. I came in on the late end, so I didn't get to see any of the good money. I really thought the Raiders would stay. I didn't have any hope for the Warriors, but, you know, the Raiders were going to keep me going. And now, you know, immediately after that, you know, COVID, you know, we're hanging on by a thread, you know, and there have been numerous PPP loans and EIDLs and a few other things to get us through the pandemic. And you know, we had our eyes set. We didn't think it would go this way, you know, and then suddenly we get hit with this ton of bricks in May that, you know, Vegas might be in the future for the A's and not Oakland, you know, and they were rushing this whole thing to, you know, get through on a vote and everything. And, you know, so here we are initially. So we get through the pandemic here and we got funded for basically we got funded to upgrade the business and expand the business. And at this point, that's not happening. If this does not go through, we, like I said, we got to downsize or and move. And if we have to downsize and move, we're probably going to Richmond, and because they do have, you know, more affordable locations, newer locations. There are a lot of warehouses out in the Harbor Bay area, and you know, that will be probably where we go if we stay open. On the downside, you know, this doesn't go through. So what we were going to do, we were going to expand, and we were going to expand into Jack London Square. We had been looking at some of the retail space in Jack London, as well as near the area at some of the old warehouses, buildings. There's that old beer garden place that was on, I want to say I'm screwing up the address. It's right next to the Vegan Soul Kitchen. I always forget the name of the beer garden, but they closed up. There was, uh, you know, there was going to be that food hall right there at on Harrison. That really never happened. And then, there was oh man, it's right on the corner of Broadway and whatever that street. Man, I'm terrible with names of people and locations. But anyways, it was we kind of looked at that spot because it's right there across from Jack London. It's Kitty Corner, I guess would be the name word for it. It's across the street and down. It's right across the street from the Waffle House, whatever, the home of chicken and waffles. And so we looked at that spot and a couple of other spots down on 2nd and 3rd. If Gallo wants to go this way, Noel Gallo was seen participating in some sort of a rally, and basically, apparently he says he's going to vote no on this. He wants the A's to stay at the Coliseum site. That's not happening. That's a non-starter to begin with. But my business is in District 5, and if we do close, that is the loss of 8 full-time jobs from people who do live in East Oakland. And if we move, I may not be able to retain those guys because of transportation issues. So I like them. I think they're good guys. They do their job well, and they get paid pretty decently to do what they do. And we don't pay these guys minimum wage. We pay them a healthy wage. So that's 8 decent paying jobs. I don't even have insurance. These guys have insurance. I'm like, how are we, killing jobs? And then I'm like, and if that's just me, what other ones? Because I do know other business owners in the Jack London Square area who are betting on this business. They keep saying, oh, it's 6.5%, blah, 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 increase over the year. I'm like, at the current state, you don't have a ballpark coming. You don't have anything happening. You take away that ballpark, you might see your growth shrink. And if you take away that ballpark, not only will you possibly see growth shrink, you may see those businesses go out of business because a lot of those guys are barely hanging on by a thread. If you guys want to see these businesses succeed over in Jack London Square, you need to go there today, not in 3 or 4 or 5 years. You got to go today because they won't be here 3 or 4 or 5 years, even if they do build a ballpark, because those fans aren't coming yet. A few of them might see a surge immediately because they might be catering to the construction workers and stuff. They do get a number of people who are working over at Brooklyn Basin, so why wouldn't they get some of the people working at the terminal? Fact of the matter is, this is business that's being lost. So you might lose my business. I have other stuff to worry about. I don't want to lose my investment. Like I said, I'm a small player in this. I'm not a hands-on guy. I put some money in, and now I'm just waiting for it to pay off, and it's not happening that way. These other guys, they have life savings involved. They have homes on the line. They have their kids' college funds on the line. They have their entire futures on the line. One of the guys, I'm pretty sure he's going to get a divorce if this thing falls apart, because they put so much money into it and so much time and so much energy and so much attention away from their family and kids. And they've quit their jobs and they're trying to make this work. And, again, losing the Raiders and the Warriors was bad enough. The pandemic was an extra kick in the nuts. And now the fact that we could very well lose the A's. All because it seems like everybody wants to play this game of chicken, and it's a stupid game of chicken. But I don't know how well the Howard Terminal project. I really can only assume, and that's what really all this stuff is, and it's just assumptions, and that's what economists are doing, is they're making assumptions based on past performance. Past performance has a lot to do with future performance, but the hard part is, I kind of lost my train of thought there for a second. I started reading comments and stuff that are popping up here. For all that it's worth, I don't think Las Vegas makes much sense. But neither did the Raiders going to Las Vegas. But at least the Raiders' plan makes a hell of a lot sense. I hope he does. I hope he gets. I'm voting against him if I'm still in the district come next election. But the same stuff that the Raiders said back then, when we went egress and ingress and we went tailgating and stuff, and then you go to Las Vegas and they don't have ingress and egress and tailgating and public transportation and all that stuff. If you guys were paying attention last week or so, Garth Brooks was playing at Allegiant Stadium. There was a mad rush of people walking over there in triple-digit weather, and people were passing out, and the EMTs were having to take people away. They didn't even get to go to the concert because they nearly died of heat exhaustion walking there. Getting in and to and through was a pain in the ass. My sister went there. She had great seats, by the way, damn near front row. Actually, both of my sisters and husbands went, and regardless, it was a madhouse. It was a shithole, a shit show. The place looks nice. They could have done that in Oakland, but that's besides the point. But Henderson, Nevada, it's the suburbs. I'm like, you might as well move to Berkeley. You're going to get a hell of a lot more people in Henderson, Nevada. If we were talking suburbs, I'm like, why aren't we looking at Dublinton or Pleasanton? Dublin or Pleasanton or Concord or Walnut Creek or Hayward or anywhere else? So why is it only Howard Terminal that's a good location? Hell, buy out the property over here where the race course is in Berkeley. I always thought that'd be a great place for a ballpark or anything really. Nobody's really looking at horse racing. That's I think a bygone thing, and those guys have always been struggling to make money there. I think they were talking about making it like a Genentech research park or something at one point. I'm getting sidetracked here. There's a lot of business that is in Oakland that will fail now because they were counting on this project. Furthermore, there will be people who are now going to look elsewhere in Oakland because of the lack of business prowess, the lack of follow-through, the lack of ability to do business in Oakland. I ended up on a big Twitter, thing a few years ago, about a few weeks ago, regarding grocery stores in West Oakland. West Oakland's a food desert. There are plenty of liquor stores and so forth, but not a lot of grocery stores. Now there's there's the community market over on San Pablo Avenue, but it's like 2 blocks away from Emeryville. It's barely in Oakland. It's barely in West Oakland. They call themselves the oasis in the desert. There's another market that it's down on. It's right across from the West Oakland State BART station. Again, very small. But here's the other one. Where's a pharmacy in West Oakland? All this business, when people come into Oakland, or who live in Oakland, they want to do business, they have to leave their immediate area. So if you're in West Oakland, if you're not able to get what you need at these markets, and they do tend to be more expensive than the larger markets, because they don't have that buying power. I don't care what group you guys federation or alliances or whatever you want to call them. There's these alliances where you basically get together with other businesses that are small and create the buying power of, say, a large business like Safeway or Walmart or somebody else, and you get better deals. But that doesn't always translate, and most of these markets cost a lot more. And I hope there is, whatever happens, I don't care if it's 3-4, 4-4, I don't care, as long as it happens. And the thing is which vote are we going to get tomorrow? Is it, are they going to shoo away Oakland, is the council going to vote on the A's proposal or their own? Both? Because the A's have already said that the Oakland proposal is might as well just vote no. Look, you got to look at, there's two problems with the A's. And don't anybody tell me that the A's don't have fans and nobody likes them. That's bullshit, honestly, because the A's will draw fans, including the casual fans, when it's the right time. They will draw 55,000 people if it's a playoff game and they open the top, because that's been a problem for years. 2 years ago they opened the top and they ended up with 55,000 people, and it wasn't even a playoff game. It was affordable, and those seats should be available and affordable because they suck. But that being said, the A's can draw people. They can draw them. Those fans exist here, but the casual fan doesn't want to go to East Oakland. And I don't have a problem with East Oakland. I've never had a problem with East Oakland. I've never been robbed. My car's never been broken into. I did get a flat tire one time. But when I go to most A's games and when I was going to Raiders games and stuff, I wasn't parking in the parking lot. I would park over by the BART station. Not even in the BART station. I'm cheap. I don't want to pay money to park. I would park on the streets. And nobody ever messed with me. I never, like I said, never got robbed. Nobody looked at me sideways. But for the casual fan who's coming in from white suburbia, and let's be honest, that's the fan base. There are not a lot of black people watching baseball these days. A lot of black guys playing baseball these days. Most of the black guys you do see are Dominican and Cuban. They are Afro-Caribbean. Not African American. They speak Spanish. They're not the guys. There's some, they happen, but the most of them are a bunch of corn-fed white guys from Fresno and Boise and who else knows where. You don't see a lot of kids from the cities playing. You don't see a lot of because sports is kind of another thing. Baseball doesn't have the attractiveness and the excitement of NBA and NFL and the Flash and stuff. I mean, I feel like sometimes hockey is more exciting. It's definitely more exciting to watch, for me at least. I grew up with hockey, but it's more exciting, players wise. And I don't know if you listen to the radio and you hear, these guys are just like, I can only imagine what they look like when they're doing these radio bits. This is Sean Manai, and you're listening to the A's. You're like, I'm not excited to listen to this game at all. I was driving home last night and I was listening to the radio, and I think it was 105.3, but there was a commercial. The Dodgers are in town and blah, blah, blah. It's like, whoa. I'm like, I don't even like the Giants, and I was kind of excited. I'm like, this is going to be an exciting series. I'm like, when was the last time you heard, hey, the Yankees are in town and, the A's are going for it, and, like, some guy, it was like monster trucks, he's like, monster trucks, he's like, oh, wow, I'm excited to go to a game. Never hear that. A's don't pay any money into that stuff. My kid's like, well, the A's get no love. I'm like, the A's don't give the A's love. My young sons told me My son told me, man, these things go away. Hold on, I'm trying to bring up the chats here. I don't know how to make the chats come back. Live chats, all. Okay, oh, there we go. I'm screwing up everything here. My son told me that tons of young people in Oakland are bigger football and basketball fans than baseball. Yeah, Oakland needs to find a way to help young people see baseball as great as basketball and football. Good point. Good point. And there's a reason. Baseball's not exciting. Baseball game lasts 3 hours or so. Sometimes there's only one score in a game. People love watching defensive football. It's a lot more action. You might get interceptions or something. There might be something happening. A guy's going to get a pass and complete some downs, and you might fail at the red zone, but something's going to happen. Maybe a field goal, and you feel good about it. That's a 1 hour game turns into 3 hours with all the timeouts and penalties and commercial breaks. So it's all about the same, but it's the players. A guy, gets in the end zone, he's dancing and doing stuff, and he's jumping into the crowd, and people love to see that. Basketball, it's very demonstrative. I mean, you see guys, if you look around, the NBA in the Bay Area, you're looking at Steph, and he's doing his little shoulder shimmy thing after he drains a three. You see all these other guys. There's a lot of flash. If there's a lot of excitement. When you see them, they have a clothing line, they have a shoe line, they're promoting, airlines and all kinds of stuff. Baseball, the only guys I really can say who are being put out there are currently Mike Trout, because he's Mike Trout, and Fernando Tatis. And maybe we'll see it later with Shohei Ohtani, because he's the hottest ticket in the game. People are complaining that tickets in the bleachers tomorrow are $30 or $40. Big freaking deal. I'm going to Seattle tomorrow for the A's series there. I paid $30-something, $38 for bleacher seats on a Thursday. Nobody cares about the A's. We don't have anybody good. Nobody knows our name. I don't know what we get when, I don't know who the Mariners' arch rivals are, but that's the what happens when the Yankees come to town, though. What happens when the Red Sox come to town? Maybe those tickets are more. And if you guys are sitting here complaining about $35 for seats, just wait until you see what happens when you got a brand new stadium. I've paid upwards of $50 for bleacher seats at a Giants game when the A's played there. So expect to see that. Expect to see expensive games. I went to spring training this year, and $75 was the ticket price for, we were on the first base side, beyond the dugouts, between the dugouts and the outfield. Anyways, $75 each, 2 tickets plus fees. That was the Dodgers. The Dodgers are the world champions. I mean, but this is a spring training game. Tickets are usually what, $15, $10, but it's the Dodgers, and that place was a sea of blue. For what it was worth. I mean, it was socially distanced seating and all that good stuff. But the fact is, it's going to cost a lot more to go to a game. They keep saying John Fisher hasn't said anything. Dave Cavill keeps saying A's aren't for sale, A's aren't for sale, A's aren't for sale. I mean, but everybody's keeps talking about how this would be, the coup. But doesn't matter. What happens in Oakland? What happens when, what happens, how much is he going to get? How much is he going to put in? So let's say it costs him $2 billion, is he getting $2 billion back for the A's? Well, you also got to think that there's also a lot of debt involved in that sort of thing. So, when you see these valuations, they're I look at them like if you were totally cash solvent and you didn't owe anybody anything, okay, maybe the Raiders are worth $3 billion, but they're not. You know, they have money tied up in things. They have debt. They have a loan to B of A. They have various. Their money's elsewhere. I'm sure they spent all this money and they got PSLs and all this stuff. They're still not out of the red. They're in debt. So, sure, they could sell the team for $3 billion. Mark and his buddies only walk away with $1 billion. I'm just using BS numbers. I'm just saying, So if the A's are worth $1.5 billion and they sink $2 billion into this project, and then Fisher goes ahead and sells it, well, they're not worth $1.5 billion. They're it's only worth $500,000 for Fisher. Did I say so? Yeah. 2 billion minus 1.5 billion, you end up with 500 million. But there's a bigger issue here. So my little business doesn't matter, and I don't think it matters to Libby and Rebecca Kaplan and Dan Kalb and all these other guys. I'm a small business. That's eight employees leaving, and a small consortium of owners taking the business elsewhere. We're small change, but when Oakland consistently shows that it can't get a deal done, when sorry, my arm's getting tired. So when Kaiser decides it's not going to build its headquarters, that's money gone. When Uber decides it's not going to move its headquarters, that's money gone. When the A's decide that they're not going to stay here, that's money gone. When the next big company, let's say Clorox, is looking for something and they decide to bail because Oakland doesn't know how to do business, that money's gone. And more of these companies, the Blue Crosses and everybody else that's here in Oakland still, they're slowly going to go away. And my business isn't going to be looking at Oakland to come back. Oh, look, to San Francisco. I'll be like, how can I make it in San Francisco? Or how can I make it in Sacramento? Or how can I make it in San Jose? But I'm not looking at Oakland anymore. Oakland showed me that it can't get anything done. Oakland shows me that they don't value businesses. Oakland shows me that they think people should remain poor and live in poverty. Because that's the way it looks to me. When I hear the word gentrification, I think of two things. There's the classic definition, and then there's the what would you call it? Urban Dictionary definition. Classic definition is basically to bring up an area to middle class standards. I don't see a problem with that, because I think we'd all like to see that. I think we would all love to live in a neighborhood where we don't have bars on the windows. People are gainfully employed. People have pride in their community. There's not graffiti everywhere. The yards are well kept. The houses are well maintained. The lawns are mowed. There aren't burned out cars on the sidewalk. People aren't living in campers. I think we would all like that. I think that would be, I don't think that should be a middle class standard to live by. The other, I'll call it the Urban Dictionary one, is white people are going to move in. That messes with me on a couple levels. Most of you guys probably see me as a white guy. I'm actually Arabic, but I'm mixed, if you want to get down to it. But what I see is that's just kind of a generalized statement. There are some studies that suggest that in the short term, building nicer homes or high rises or whatever, these expensive housing does temporarily drive up the cost of housing in an area, but after a couple years that actually lowers, because I don't remember why. It was an interesting read though, but it doesn't always. It's basically saying that having a mixed uh, wealth, mixed mixed income community is better than having a full on poor community or a full uh, rich white guy community. I also kind of find it messed up to think that only white people are going to move into a gentrified area. Because why wouldn't black or Latin families take advantage of the low cost of housing and move in and to enjoy the fruits of uh, growing property value and so forth. And some of the ideas that we have about gentrification are kind of based on fear. And I'm not saying it's good. It can be bad. It drives out a lot of populations, and we've seen it in San Francisco, where the artist population is basically got drove into Oakland and now is being driven out elsewhere. And there's a lot of reasons for that. There's not enough places to live. There aren't enough places to work. And a lot of the places that are available to work are being turned into places where you can live. People are taking warehouses and turning them into lofts. And that takes away more of that working environment. It's part of the reason we're looking at going to Richmond if we can't get something in Jack London, because Jack London still has businesses. They still have something I wouldn't mind, being involved in, and it would have, the foot traffic and the other businesses to attract more business. On the other side of things, in East Oakland and around where I'm at, a lot of the retail space, or commercial space, I should say, is being turned into housing space. Either it's being demolished completely, or it is being turned into lofts and other sort of housing, and that's bad for us. You know, um, our lease is up in October, and they're wanting to increase the rent, even though businesses are moving. So there's nothing really in it for us to stay in that part. But come, if this should happen, if for some reason, the council moves forward and they can do something here, then we have an opportunity to move into that area. We have the funding available to do business in that area, but only if it's financially feasible. And really, that feasibility will only come if that ballpark or some other very large scale project was to move in there. And frankly, I don't see anybody else moving into that area. So it could just be a waste of time. And so that's what we've decided as the business owners, is that you basically, in October, sorry, my arm is getting tired of holding up this phone. So what we've decided as business owners is that in October, when our lease is up, and if this deal falls apart tomorrow, or in the coming weeks, who knows? This could all be just a bluff. If this doesn't happen, we are going to pack up and leave Oakland, and that's sad because I love Oakland. I was born in Oakland, spent a lot of my life in Oakland. I do nothing but go to bat for Oakland, and I don't really feel like Oakland goes to bat for me as much as I go to bat for it. I feel like it hampers me and my ability to do business, whether it's permitting or what. Oakland hasn't made it easy to do business, and we didn't really look forward to what we're going to have to go through if we do move into Jack London Square. But we feel like in the long term, if this was to happen, that it would be worth making that effort and spending that money to get into the place and to do business there, because we would get that return on investment. But right now, it's not looking good, and I have a feeling they're just going to screw this whole thing up, because honestly, that's what they do. And in listening to things like Dave Cavill here with Zenny, and in last Friday's interview with Casey Pratt and the other guy, Larry Beal, it sounded like they were all kind of on the same page, but they just didn't want to agree to anything. And I'm like, this is a non-binding vote. Who gives a shit if you agree on anything right now? I'm like, it seemed like the non-binding agreement on a term sheet would just kind of set the stage for the specifics. Everybody, Oakland was saying, well, we don't have enough specifics, and now Cavill is saying we don't have enough specifics. I'm like, you guys have had 2 months to hammer out specifics. Technically, you've had since January to hammer out specifics, but that's okay. If it's a non-binding vote, say, okay, here's what we're trying to work for. How are we going to do it? Work on the specifics later. I mean, Cavill has said it a few times. Do we agree at least on a vision for the waterfront? And then we can figure out how later. And I think they're fighting over the same thing for no reason. So what that makes me feel like is, in a lot of ways, it makes me feel like the A's have other options. And let's see how those options pan out before we commit to this. I know we've committed a little bit. So let's say you're dating a girl. You really like her. She's really cool, but you have this other girl too that you kind of like, and you want to see how that pans out before you put a ring on the other one. And I feel like that's kind of where we're at. Now, there's this other part of me that feels like a lot of this Las Vegas thing is, it's a bluff, but it's also maybe, excuse me, I got a burp. MLB testing the waters in Las Vegas to see if that's the place to go to come expansion time. There's a CBA that expires on December 1st, and they're going to have to renegotiate that whole thing. They're talking about possibly having another strike, MLB strike next year. Hopefully it doesn't get to that part, but or to that point. But that's a possibility. But one of the things is the A's, or MLB wants the A's and the Rays to get their shit together so that they know where they're putting a team. Now, with that being said, I think Las Vegas gets a team either way. Las Vegas shows that they can get shit done. J Boogie, if you have other options, you're gonna look, because other options don't seem quite as attractive. So now it's, what are you gonna do to up the ante? So what is Oakland going to do, or what are the A's going to do to make this work? But like I said, I think Las Vegas gets a team either way when it comes time for expansion. Now, whether it's the A's or an expansion team is another question. I think we should stop relocating teams to other places and let them have expansion teams on their own dime. And, I don't like the idea with, there's the AASEG, it's the African American Sports and Entertainment Group, which is Ray Bobbitt and some financiers. I would hope that if they are successful in getting the NFL back into Oakland, that it's an expansion team. I don't want Oakland to do to another city what has been done to us multiple times now. The Raiders have come and gone twice, and the Warriors have left us. And I know they only went to San Francisco, but a lot of people feel kind of they feel betrayed with that. And I don't want to do that to another city. I would hate to do that. I don't know, throw just Buffalo or Jacksonville into the mix there. You know, I'd hate to do that to those guys. I know Buffalo, for instance. I don't know what their situation is now, but I know a while ago they were looking at a new stadium and having problems with it and talking about possibly leaving. You know, the Bills are some of the craziest fans in the league. You know, and I don't. I couldn't imagine them leaving. I mean, it's the Bills. So, and the Jags too. They seem probably like the more likely candidate. But God, I'd hate to see the Jags leave. I hate to do that to people in Jacksonville. Um, but what are we gonna do? And there's other places like Charlotte and Nashville and stuff that are in talks. They've kicked around Montreal, and the Rays either going between I don't know. Who knows where they're going? Vancouver is another city that has been talked about. Are they going to go from 32, or are they going to go to 34 teams if they do? And, you know, a new CBA, if they agree to expand, you know, that's more jobs. That's more opportunities to play and grow baseball. But you know, baseball has a baseball problem right now. Baseball's problem is itself. Manfred's made them a lot of money, but Manfred's also probably lost them a lot of fans. And they mess with the game, everything from, you know, robo strike zones to, what do you call those things? You know, the replay thing's a mess. You know, these TV deals are a mess. The blackouts are a mess. You know, you're cutting a lot of fans out of baseball. And that's a problem, you know. And again, these guys are boring as shit. I'm gonna be honest with you. Baseball is boring. If it wasn't for the fact that I'm over 40, I probably wouldn't care for baseball too much. I mean, I was great with it for a long time, and then I got bored of it. And then I came back to it because my kid plays ball, and that was important. And I love the game, and I love being able to see how I've grown and it's grown. But to be honest, you know, the new generation want something more, and you're gonna start, you know, everybody's going, oh my God, bat flipping. Fuck bat flipping. Bat flipping, great. Be demonstrative. You know, watch your home run go. You know, bark at the, you know, I like when pitchers are barking at umpires and catchers and hitters, and I like when guys, you know, celebrate a little bit when they, you know, rob a home run, or I don't know, just do something. It's like, do something, you know. And I love seeing guys like Tatis and Vlad Jr. and these new guys, because they're bringing. If you ever watch Cuban and Dominican baseball, those dudes are having fun. They're flashy. They'll be wearing gold chains to the plate. You know, that's what kids see. And those guys, like I said, they're demonstrative and they're fun. And I think baseball needs that injection. And we go back, you know, why aren't there that many black players left in baseball, with the exception of, again, Dominican and Cuban type players. I know they're coming from other places too, but in American black players, there aren't that many, and there really aren't that many fans. I remember going to A's games as a kid, you know, in the 70s and 80s, and there were a lot of black kids. There were a lot of black families, and I don't see them as much anymore, and that's sad, because how many players are we missing out on because baseball was looked down upon? It wasn't the sport, you know. And when, you know, maybe it's not true anymore, and I hope it isn't. You know, it used to be that when people saw, you know, poor black people, the only way to get out of that poor situation was something that made you a lot of money quickly, you know. So we always have those stereotypes of you either got to play ball or be a rapper or sell drugs, you know. And, you know, nowadays we're seeing kids who are being, you have those opportunities still, but now you have programming and robotics and other educationally oriented things, not just sports and entertainment, or crime, and I hope those people who talk down about baseball, and I hope they'll think about it, because I'd rather see your kid get a home run than a concussion. You know, I hate seeing what's happening to guys like Richard Sherman and stuff, where are they suffering from the effects of CTE? The Antonio Browns of the world, have they had taken too many shots to the head? All for that. I'm looking at Kyler Murray. I'm like, here's a guy who took the easy money of football over a baseball career, and what happens with that? It's like, I hope it's worth it for him, but I also wonder what made that decision for him. I'm like, obviously baseball takes a while to get there. He was ready to go. But how many years would he hang out in the minors before he even gets a chance to play at the major league level? And that's a thing you don't deal with NBA and the NFL either. You get drafted, you get on the team, and if you make you get a chance at preseason to make the team, and if you make the team, you play. Simple as that. Now, there's a lot fewer opportunities in the NBA than there are in the NFL, but there are opportunities. Baseball has steps. You got to play in the low single A, There's multiple levels of single A, which I never understood. But and then again, we go back to expansion and contraction. The minor league system got smaller. Teams are now basically owners, and they effectively removed many teams, and that's less jobs for players and less opportunities. So hopefully they can hammer all this stuff out. Anyways, I've been dragging on for over 45 minutes. I just wanted to kind of say again and reiterate, depending on what happens tomorrow, and depending on what they vote on and how they vote, my business will be leaving Oakland, and I know a few others who will also be following suit. Not only will mine be leaving Oakland, it might go out of business completely, because I don't know if we can hang on through October with just the small clientele that we have right now, and without having that light at the end of the tunnel of Howard Terminal and baseball. So fingers crossed. Hopefully the A's and the city can come to some sort of an agreement and keep moving forward. And I just fear that once baseball is gone, we probably may never see professional sports at this level ever again in Oakland, or at least in the coming decades. All right, guys. Like, follow, subscribe. Zenny62. And I'll probably come back tomorrow. I haven't been on for a while because I've been trying to get this business moving. But I'll be in Seattle tomorrow, and I'll do a little thing from there, and maybe talk about how all this plays out tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon. All right, you guys, have a good night. Try not to think about this too much more, and get some sleep. All right, guys.